With more and more people wanting to become nurses, it makes you think, is it even worth it still? And in this video, I'm going to be going over 5 reasons why I don't think nursing is worth it anymore. So stay tuned. Welcome back, Psych Dude family. It's good seeing each and every one of you guys today. If you are new to this channel, let me formally introduce myself. I'm the Psych Dude. I'm a board-certified psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And in this channel, I go over several different subjects to educate the public about mental health, ways to improve your lifestyle, topics related to nursing, nurse practitioners, and specifically psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners like myself. So if you are interested in any of these topics, please feel free to subscribe. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and follow me on Instagram at the Psych Dude. So you probably clicked this video, you probably either on the fence of wanting to become a nurse, or you're just interested in trying to find out why I think nursing isn't worth it anymore. And honestly, just amidst this COVID-19 pandemic, it's starting to open up more and more people's eyes on whether or not nursing is the right choice anymore. And honestly, it's starting to open up my eyes too, just because of how things are going down, how they're treating nurses, and it's starting to look so bad, especially for our current situation of nurses. And it makes you think, should newer nurses want to even be involved, or new potential nurses want to even be involved in wanting to become a nurse and working as a nurse their whole entire life? And it's something you always have to think about. And in this video, I wanted to kind of shed light on these things, because sometimes nursing isn't worth it, and you have to think about that, especially if you're trying to make this a lifelong thing. So let's get started. So the very first reason why I think it's not worth being a nurse anymore is the fact that large organizations and large hospitals don't protect their own nurses. If you're not going to feel protected, especially during a pandemic, how are you going to protect other people? How are you going to make other people feel safe in the organization or in their hospital? If you're making nurses wear masks the whole entire shift and just wear one mask in all of the patients' rooms that they're in, how are you going to feel safe? Do you feel like you would want to get into that profession? Especially when you're looking at being a nurse and you're wanting to become a nurse, and you see everywhere that they're not giving nurses masks in order for them to protect themselves, and you're hearing about nurses dying every single day just because they're not adequately prepared to take care of these patients. Would you really want to be in a career that actually puts your life in danger when all you're trying to do is save other people's lives? Especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, it makes you really think about, is it worth it? And it makes you think about, are you willing to go into the hospital possibly not being adequately prepared enough to help other people, and them expecting you to work your butt off in order for them to save your life? And it's something you have to think about if it's worth it or not for you. And sometimes once you outweigh the pros and cons, you might think that it might not be worth it, but it's something you have to always consider. So the second reason why I don't think it's worth it to become a nurse is you're not respected anymore. Yes, you're going to be one of the most glorious, most respected professions in the whole entire world. But at the end of the day, looking at it, the way that patients treat us, the way that some doctors treat us, and the way that other healthcare professionals treat us within the hospital or healthcare setting, it doesn't seem like we're the most respected nurses. I'm not just saying because I'm a nurse that we get all this good and glorious things, but there are days where it feels like people look down on us. And unfortunately, it's something that some people can't handle, and unfortunately sometimes people don't want to have that on a daily basis. And if you're feeling like you're looked down upon over and over and over again. You have to think about the toll it takes on your mental health, your physical health, and how you're feeling as a whole. And sometimes it's not worth it for some people in order to feel that way every single day. So you have to take that in consideration. There's so many other professions within the medical field that look down on us, and it's something you have to deal with. So definitely consider that. So the third reason why I don't think it's worth being a nurse anymore is nurses eat their young alive. And if you notice, a huge ordeal in the past was that nurse bullying became a huge thing because older nurses would constantly eat their young alive. And unfortunately, with all of these things in place, it still happens till this day. Yes, more and more of those older nurses are starting to retire, but it's still happening till this day, just because other nurses feel like all of these new nurses have to kind of prove themselves. And unfortunately, by helping them prove themselves, they have to make sure that they can survive the onslaught of all these tasks to do and making them feel like they're drowning. And unfortunately, that still happens to this day, and it still happens everywhere. Even as a nurse practitioner, I'm sure it happens somewhere. I haven't experienced it personally, but I'm sure it's happened somewhere. But in the nursing field in general, you're more than likely you're gonna experience nurse bullying, and that's something you have to be aware of. And I don't think it's worth it at all to having to experience that. So the fourth reason why I feel it's not worth it being a nurse is you're gonna have to deal with sickness and death all the time, and that kind of sucks, especially when it comes to our mental health and our physical well-being. And if you're already an anxious or someone dealing with mental health, thinking about all of those things, potentially bringing it back home to you, you're just going to get stressed out even more. And I'm not saying you're going to deal with death or you're going to deal with sickness in every single unit, but for the most part, a lot of the things, you're taking care of these people, and you're potentially going to have to deal with death, and you're potentially going to have to deal with an extremely sick patient. And like I said, you're going to have to deal with it every single day, and sometimes that might take a toll on you, and sometimes you might just feel overwhelmed. And if you're not a person that can kind of deal with these things, then maybe it's something you have to think about potentially not doing, because you are going to have to deal with it. And let's face it, majority of the departments you work in are you're going to have to deal with some sort of issue. So the fifth and final reason why I don't think it's worth it being a nurse anymore is you don't make that much money anymore. So huge thing before, I don't know when it happened, but they always said if you're a nurse, you're going to have a lot of money, you're going to be stable, and you're going to be in a stable career, which a lot of it is true. And don't get me wrong, we make good money, but at the same time, for all the things that we do, I don't know if the money's worth it, because you can always make money. You could always make money. You could always make money somewhere else. You could always make tons of money in business. You could always make money in stock market. You could make money as an artist. You could make money everywhere as long as you kind of work hard for it. But yes, people say that as a nurse you can make tons of money, but honestly, sometimes it's not even worth it for the amount of work that we have to do on a daily basis. Right now, I'm kind of in a career where it's extremely, how do I say, it's not that hard on my body anymore. A lot of it is just up here mentally, it's draining, but physically it's not draining. But when I was in the ER, that was physically and mentally draining, and the amount of money I was making there, definitely not worth it. And that's something you have to take in consideration, just because older generations, they are teaching it to the newer generations, but at the same time, a lot of money to the older generations compared to newer generations isn't the same. They might not look at value of the money as the same, because let's face it, in California, I think the minimum wage in certain parts of California, maybe LA, is $15 an hour. Think about that, $15 an hour. Some nurses in other states don't even make that much money. So it's something you have to think about. They're just closing their closing the gap on how much you're gonna get paid. And nurse salary doesn't, you get started at a higher rate, but the amount that you can jump at these lower levels, you can catch up to kind of a nursing salary. But for nurses, they just make a certain amount and then it gradually goes up every year, depending if you're union or depending on your length of service, things like that. But for the most part, sometimes it's not even worth it. The amount of hard work, amount of stress, amount of all the things, the work you have to do, sometimes it's not even worth it at the very end. You might have to just look elsewhere. Honestly, it's one of those things you kind of have to just outweigh the risk and benefits and try to figure out what's right for you. At the end of the day, you have to figure out if nursing is right for you. For me personally, I love nursing. I love the fact that I get to help and save lives on a daily basis. But at the same time, it just depends on whether or not it's worth it for you. Because sometimes you might not feel like you have some sense of joy, some sense of purpose. You might not feel that in nursing. Sometimes you might just feel like every single day you're dealing with hardship. Every single day you have to deal with death. And if it's not right for you and you can't necessarily look on the bright side, then it might not be worth it for you. But like I said, at the end of the day, you have to think about if it's worth it for you. If you feel like you want to put in the work and do it. I've had so many conversations with other people, especially amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, where people are like, damn, I don't even know if I want to become a nurse anymore, because all the things that the nurses have to get put through. Yeah, they get a pizza party. Yeah, they get free stuff just because they're dealing with all of these things that they have to deal with right now. But is it worth putting your health on the line? Is it worth putting your family's, potentially putting your family's health on the line because you're bringing these things home with you because you're not adequately prepared to take care of these people? Is it even worth it? Honestly, if I were going to do it all over again and if I was just starting brand new, I probably wouldn't do it because it's not worth it to me. It's not worth putting my family in jeopardy. It's not worth putting the loved ones around me in jeopardy, especially as my parents are getting older, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law are getting older. It's not worth it at all. But everyone is different. Everyone has their own opinions and everyone has their own purpose. I probably would have found something else that I love, even though I love what I do now, but I probably would have found something that I love other than nursing, where I'm just safe at home, not doing anything, compared to busting my butt. Well, I'm still at home busting my butt by talking to these patients, kind of calming them down. But everywhere else, like the nurses, are busting their butt just to save lives, just to be able to just keep pushing forward and kind of flatten this curve and trying to help out. But it is what it is. And for all of you nurses out there that are working the front lines, I applaud you. I appreciate every single thing you guys do from the bottom of my heart. I'm behind the computer, I'm behind the phone, I'm behind this webcam, but I'm definitely rooting for you guys. Yeah, just stay safe and continue all the hard work. Well guys, this is the end of my video. I hope you guys learned something. I hope this kind of gave you a better perspective of whether or not if nursing is right for you. Sometimes it's not right for someone and sometimes it's right for someone, and it's whether or not, it's your choice at the end of the day, and you guys have to kind of decide whether it's worth it for you. Alrighty guys, as always, have a wonderful day, and if you haven't liked my video already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Instagram at the Psych Dude. Bye.